So how do we know that Kelly is feeling it more home today? What's the indicator? Lost the suit. Hey, man. It took what, 2 months? Good. Welcome home, Kelly. So grateful for your prayer. So good to see you. It's a cold day. I have a good news. We have 4 space heaters that we ordered, and I don't know if 4 is going to be enough, because I just realized that we have to keep the 6 feet, so 4 heaters will be like exactly for 4 people. so someone, we'll probably take turns. We're gonna, like Israelites in the desert, going to be walking by the heaters. It's going to be like a Russian Orthodox service, no sitting, standing. We're just going to be walking in the circles by heaters, keeping the distance, It's going to be the most unique church in Southern California. Oh, gosh. But there's still, last week, some of you might know, I was not in a close proximity, but in a sort of like a certain degree of separation from someone who was diagnosed positive from my other shop in La Sierra, and I had to be quarantined. Thankfully, the results came in, Sunday morning, and I was negative, so we're good. But I know a lot of people, a lot more people that I could remember for the longest time testing positive, including our own social workers today. Megan Christensen was supposed to be your presenter, and she's helping us to organize this clothing collection drive, and she just texted me this morning. Her results came this morning, and she was positive. So we are living in a very unpredictable, very fluid environment. I'm grateful that we remain open. I'm grateful that you're coming, and that just means the world. And people who are watching online, thank you for joining us. And we have the most remarkable following, not in terms of the numbers, but in terms of consistency. So I'm very grateful. And speaking of being grateful, I'm grateful to Sam McBride, who did phenomenal work last week. I watched his sermon, and I have to admit I watched it more than once because it was so well done. It was a textbook sermon. And if I understood it correctly, help me if I'm right, he challenged me to a 56-minute sermon. Was that what he said? I couldn't understand what he was trying to challenge me to, a 15-minute sermon or to a 56-minute sermon. So now that we are already 3 minutes into the sermon, our dear Dr. Sam tongue-in-cheek McBride blessed us and set us on the right course. And I'm glad he kind of picked up where I left in the first sermon we did on the Advent. But the basic idea that we said that during the Advent time, during this expectation time, we all inadvertently, and unintentionally become a little bit Jewish. And speaking of Jewish, congratulations to Tahir family. Hanukkah started Thursday, right? So we're in the third light today, so it's good. We all be a little bit of Jewish, and Sam kind of picked the theme that I want to continue today, and probably it's going to go through all the Advent, because we're dealing with the same issue. How the people who were supposed to be the very objective and goal of God coming completely missed something that changed the rest of the world, but for them it remained to be something that they keep, let's just say it mildly, with a stretched arm out. How did Jews miss Jesus? Sam picked on it and talked about it, and we asked this question: how did they miss it? And I want to ask a question that we continue to develop and unpack. Why did they miss it? Because how we can technically see the political struggles and the religious beliefs, but why? What's the main reason? Because we so much focus on life on how. There's so many how things, and we're really getting good at how, because with science develop, we have rational beings. The reason is good, and we the phrase know how. If business is in trouble, we move in. We know how to fix things. Some people know how to fix churches, and we work and we're really good in the developing steps and the procedures, and if something doesn't work, we reevaluate, return, go back. But the question, why did Israelites miss Jesus? The why question is an important question in his life, because I don't think we can ever get it right how, no matter what you do in life. And this is maybe, if anything, I would like us to carry from this sermon today, maybe the simple thing. No matter what you approach, what task or goal, you will never get right how if you don't figure out why. Why are we doing what we're doing? Or why we're not doing what we're doing? Or why things are happening, they are happening. And I think during this pandemic, there's a lot of how and what questions that we look, and somehow people shy away. Did you notice, if you watch the news, people shy away from the question why? Because there's no answers that you can give if you just operate on the level of what makes sense and what's rational. That was unpredictable, or maybe predictable. That was this and that, and everything becomes so ambiguous. And I think this is where we as Christians in a very unique position. I think, particularly this time of Advent, we have an edge because we can make a pretty good case on why. And this is what I want to spend the rest of the sermon. So we have about 10 minutes left. A man named John was sent from God. He came as a witness to testify concerning the light, so that through him everyone would believe in the light. He himself wasn't the light, but his mission was to testify concerning the light. This is John's testimony. When the Jewish leaders in Jerusalem sent priests and Levites to ask him, "Who are you?" John confessed. He didn't deny, but confessed, "I'm not the Christ." They asked him then, "Who are you? Are you Elijah?" John said, "I'm not." "Are you the prophet?" John answered, "Nope." They asked, "Who are you? We need to give an answer to those who send us. What do you say about yourself?" John replied, I'm a voice crying out in the wilderness, make the Lord's path straight, just as the prophet Isaiah said." Those sent by Pharisees asked, "Why do you baptize if you are not the Christ, no Elijah, nor the prophet?" John answered, I baptize with water. Someone greater stands among you whom you don't recognize. He comes after me, but I am not worthy to untie his sandal straps. This encounter took place across the Jordan in Bethany, where John was baptizing. My first church, I think year was 2007, 2008. And we started doing crazy things. Twice a year we did so-called Christian cantatas. So Christmas cantata and the Easter cantata. And just to describe you what it is, it's a bunch of church members who are asked, is basically if you put the entire church in front of the headlights, it will look like a big gigantic deer. Because we were doing the play production and the choir and the decoration, as the angels flying and the lights and the fog machine, everything you would imagine you would see in the Crystal Cathedral during these times, only much, much, much worse. But we were so excited. It was the best thing that happened in our church. I mean, auditioning for the choir was only one requirement. If you can breathe, you get to sing in the choir. You get to, if you can walk, you can be an actor. You do all kinds. I mean, we had our church attendance was about 150 people. We had like 170 people involved into this thing. We had relatives coming, helping us building decorations. It was a huge thing. Over 3 months, 100+ people. There were rehearsals every week. It was a big holy mass. I was absolutely, by the end of that season, I was so exhausted. I couldn't see people for like 2-3 days. So we're in the middle of this, maybe 2 weeks left, maybe about even like first, second week of December. We're getting like going over there because you have to program the lighting and you have to create 150 different lighting scenes and stuff. It all takes time. So I'm doing this. I'm exhausted. Haven't slept maybe a couple days. I think I was going. I was at school at this, and it was the finals week. I was taking finals. It was just crazy. And I overhear from the office, my office administrator Helen picks up the phone and she's talking to someone. And her tone is getting more and more serious. And she says, Pastor Vadim, you better take this. So I'm exhausted. It's like, what's this? I hope nothing happened. This is the worst thing. So the lady on the other line, let's call her Susan. She was not Susan. I just like to call her Susie because she just sounded like Susie. Just kind of wake up Susie. And she said, are you the pastor? I said, yes. And then like not skipping a beat, she goes, how dare you? It was before the YouTube and Zoom and broadcasting, so I know we didn't send anything out. So what did I do? She said, I'm your neighbor. I said, okay, did we do something? I'm so sorry. She's like, no. How dare you to take Christ out of Christmas? During the Christmas time, our church, did I mention, was doing cantatas. So in a cantata, you have to put extra information on the marquee board on outside of the church sign. So we had to put the title of the play, I think Hope Was Born, and the times. We were doing it 3 days, and the starting time, and the contact information, how to get a reservation. We had like over 700 people going through that thing. This is pretty amazing. So we had to shorten Christmas and just put X and M-A-S. She just could not believe that we took Christ out of Christ. And she's like, how dare you? In the culture that moving further away from Christ, are you a Christian church? I said, yes, ma'am, we're a Christian church. Like, how are you moving away from Christ? And I said, we're not. We were run out of, but everything, she couldn't even listen to what I was saying. I was trying to make a point that if she looked 6 feet toward the fence, there was a 12-feet banner on the fence that says Christmas Cantata. But she didn't care about that. She was all focusing on me taking Christ out of Christmas. I said, I'm so sorry. There's the explanation. We did not mean it intentionally. Why don't you come and join us? And you come tonight. I'll save you the best seat in the house. It kind of gets crowded, but I'll reserve a seat for you, Susie. She wasn't Susie. And I will let you watch the cantata and share with us, and we celebrate Christ. You will see it for yourself. She said, no, I can't come. I said, how come? She said, don't you know it's a Christmas season and I don't have time? And she hung up the phone. I've been praying for Susie for about 12 years. I just realized sometimes I do sound like Susie. Because taking Christ out of faith is such a quick thing that we do. Sometimes we do it not even thinking about it. We've been celebrating Christmas. We as Seventh-day Adventists living this message of Christ's second coming with this deep expectation of someone is going to come. Someone is going to bring God's kingdom. And we say, well, this should not affect us. We should be ready. We keep this message. And we're pretty sure we're on the right track with this. And you know what? So were Jews waiting for the Messiah. They had all the right scriptures. They talk all the right talks. But somehow, and John makes it in his gospel so clear. And if you want to just describe what the entire message of the Gospel of John is, you can get it from the very first few verses. That the light came into the world. came into the darkness, and darkness did not recognize it, and it rejected the light. So everything they were waiting and expecting for, they rejected. And you scratch the back of your hand and say, why? Why did you take Messiah out of your faith when your entire faith should be about expecting the Messiah and His coming and bringing the new kingdom? Why? How? And I think why is important there. And John, instead of giving a big long speech, especially in the Gospel of John, it's very funny because John just brings John the Baptist, just plumps it straight into Bethany, there in, like in the desert, somewhere on the shore of the Jordan River. And John just starts going at it. So other evangelists, John the Baptist is such an important figure because he's mentioned in all four Gospels. If something is mentioned in all four Gospels, it's important. And Luke and Matthew, they talk about John and they describe him, John wearing like a skirt made out of camel hair, and which that might be a pleasant experience, right? Especially when it gets hot in the desert. And then there's honey in his beard, just still dripping, and his breath smells like you just ate sour onion potato chips, because he eats locusts, and he have like a locust like leg sticking off his teeth. I mean, like, is that something in my teeth? Yeah, it takes a leg out. This is kind of John we have. So we have this figure that's obscure. John, the evangelist, doesn't want anything to do with that because he wants John to go straight at it. And John does not spare anything. He just starts preaching. And he says this thing, and he uses this language not of his own, of the prophet Isaiah, that he relies a lot on, kind of finds a lot of commonality. And he quotes him, what we heard in the text mentioned by Dr. Sam tongue-in-cheek McBride last week. By the way, we have about 27 minutes sermon left. Am I keeping track, right? So so I am the voice crying in the desert. This idea that the light is rejected. He's standing in Bethany. And please remember this name, the name of the town, Bethany. It will be important for John. When we start reading the gospel, it's just in a little geeky way. Maybe when you have a little bit more time during this COVID thing, we start reading the scriptures in a little geeky way. And it will come out because John the evangelist, the gospel writer, drops the name Bethany, and there's a reason for it. So this John the Baptist standing there, and he is proclaiming the word that became flesh. And no one have seen God except the Son. And basically what he's here is, come here, folks, come here. Come. Leave the big towns, leave the noise. Turn off the Twitter feed, Instagram, Facebook, news channels. Come here. Let me just tell you something. God is here. Is it sinking in? Because I know it should. Because for 400 years there was not a prophetic word written. Silence. We're not finding the biblical literature. When we read the scripture, when we go from Old Testament to the New Testament, between the last prophet and the Gospel of Matthew, 400 years. There's so-called apocryphal literature. If you open the Catholic Bible, it has 11 extra books, and you'll find some things in between. But the most of direct speech that God addresses people, there was a 400 years of silence. And the question is, was that God silent for 400 years? He just didn't care to talk? He was just got a little moody, got away? Or maybe there was a reason why they didn't hear God. Or maybe they got a little bit busy. Now you can understand why a little bit paranoid they come to John, because what are you saying? Because for 400 years we did not hear from God, and now it is you. What university did you finish? No university. I mean, who dresses you? Apparently you don't care about that. You don't live in a fancy place. You're in the middle of nowhere in Bethany. God knows what you're eating, and now you're saying this. Who are you? John, are you the Messiah? Because you're saying things like God is here. That's pretty risky stuff to say. And why they're saying, are you the Messiah? Because while God was silent, we don't have a prophetic word. It's not a word of Scripture written for 400 years. But we have a plenty of, at the time, plenty of messiahs. And they continue in Israel. There were messiahs, especially in the 1st and 2nd century, even after Christ's birth. Messiahs were popping up everywhere. Here, there, messiahs rebellion. And everyone who leads any movement against for political and any kind of religious gathering, any leader will be immediately put on a pedestal and named the Messiah. There are plenty of messiahs. So they come and say, maybe he's just another Messiah. And John says, no, I'm not. Very tempting to say, yes, I am. Isn't that every preacher's dream? Whenever anybody came to me after sermon and said, Pastor, you're the Messiah. That would be so flattering for anybody. People would give so much to get the title. But John does not care for some reason. They ask, okay, you're not the Messiah. Okay. You're clearly out of this world. Are you Elijah? So now we start picking up that the people have tried to give to John the kind of status that clearly puts him above your common average human being. Messiah, Elijah is known for doing miracles and then disappearing and just supernatural stuff. Oh, people are hungry for supernatural. Okay, you're not the Elijah? Prophet. You are the prophet. And John says, no, I'm not. How underwhelming. If they made the trip all the way through Jerusalem to Bethany to find out that he's just not much. A little bit of disappointment. What they really wanted to see, what they were looking for all these hundreds of years, a superhero, as someone, the Messiah that can come and rescue them. You're not much there. We say, well, it was so many years ago. How about now? And this is just pure speculation. If you quote me, this is not from Scripture. This is 100% from Vadim. There's no scientific research, but maybe somebody can do that. Is it me that in the past 20 years, I've seen more superheroes popping up in our culture than ever before? We used to have like a Superman, a Batman. Now, how many superheroes out there? I mean, and they're all takes, and all kinds. They're male, female. They're all kind of nationalities. They run fast. They all have. I mean, some can fly, some can crawl, some can be really big, some can get really small. Some can fight with a shield. Others can fight with a hammer. I mean, how many of them? There's a whole, I was just alerted, I was watching a Russian news, and somebody was saying there is this really disturbed TV show in America. I was like, someone from Russia told me, it's called The Boys on Amazon. Apparently it's the whole show about the superheroes who are all nuts. And a very dark comedy when these superheroes just live their selfish, narcissistic, self-indulgent lives. So we are crazy about superheroes. And I'm asking a question, why are we into superheroes? Why we want this fire-spitting, rooftop jumping, kind of mean and happy and moody and simple and complex, fast running, fast flying? Why we are longing? Why the culture? Why this stuff sells? Why Marvel makes billions of dollars every year? Maybe it's the same question that those who were sent by the high priests to ask John, because they were looking, they were longing, hoping maybe there is a superhero, or the worst case scenario, anti-superhero. Someone big enough that we can fight. That kind of unites people too. But someone that can be above human. Is it a Superman or a Wonder Woman? And John says, I'm neither. Is he just an average Joe? What a disappointment. They were looking for a superhero. They wanted him to be a little bit as a superhero. Why are we so looking for superheroes? And did you notice one common thing about across all superheroes? We can understand them. We cannot do what they do, because they can do much better what we wanted to do but never could. They could fly, jump, crawl, fight, hang on, read minds, do all kinds of things. But we can understand, they feel they're just so like us, only they can do certain things better like us. And maybe that's why we like superheroes, because they become those sort of our alter egos, that embodiment of our hidden desires and they really want to do. And somebody cuts me on the freeway, I wish I can just run behind that guy, pick up the car and just put it in the middle of the lake. I don't want any harm. I just want to put that car in the middle of the lake somewhere so that guy doesn't know where to go. So I want to do something like this, and we want that power. We want the superhero. We want our heroes to be like us, only feel like us, think like us, but to do things much better than us. And I wonder, that's the same rationale. People don't change. I wonder, it's the same thing that people were expecting from the Messiah. We want Messiah who feels like us, does like us, thinks like us, and who takes our side when we need it, but he just does a lot better what we cannot do. And what is that? Throw those pesky Romans away. If we just free ourselves, that's the kind of Messiah we're looking for. We need a superhero. And many miss the fact that Jesus was indeed the Messiah, because they were naturally looking for a superhero who is much easier to understand. I wonder, in our culture today, it used to be we were all glamored with the supermodels, and made all the young ladies growing up. I remember just reading it in the 70s and 80s. When you look at the glamour magazines, it makes people sort of self-conscious if the women cannot look as pretty. I wonder, with the superhero culture, it got in the same level. My children look at me, and if I don't look like a superhero dad, I'm kind of an average Joe, and I'm not interested, because everybody wants to have a superhero uncle. We're picking up on that culture too. So now our superheroes are very flawed. So they have big issues, and this become completely confusing. Like we live in a culture of the pathetic superheroes and superheroes humans that strive want to be. If this is not confusing, I don't know what is. So with this 45 minutes left in this sermon, I would like us to be reminded again that in Israel there was a plenty of talk of liberation. There was a few years during this 400 years, there was a few years of humiliation, but there was always great, probably 150 years of one of the greatest since David, period history of freedom, relative freedom and independence in Israel, because of the lot of sacrifice during Maccabean wars. And they've done remarkable things. They were almost superheroes, those Maccabees, to be able to overthrow Persians and Hasmoneans. There's one little problem. During that great time, God was silent. There was not a word from God. Not a whisper. And why they couldn't hear? Were they deaf? Or maybe there were some other things that were not allowed them to hear God, because we believe that God never stops speaking. So something prevented them from hearing. And this is where John picked up, and this is the true superpower of John, that he was not trying to sell that he could do something that no other person can do. He can speak better or louder or more appealing. He could create a mega church. None of that was interesting to him. What his superpower was that he was able to say, what if we find the superpower in giving up all the powers that we hang on to? What if you find the true freedom to rise above the human when you give up the power or powers that you either explicitly or secretly worshiping or following or desiring? What if you step outside of your comfort zone, leave the city, leave the village, and come into the desert and stand with me? And there, in the quietness of the desert, maybe the water of the Jordan River, you can just hear it flowing through. You start speaking up the voice. Not loud, just says, I'm here. And this is the whole point of ministry of John the Baptist, that God comes in a quietness and God becomes audible and heard when we silence, when we move away the noises and the cacophony of things that are happening. And when people come to the edge of the water to be baptized, and they look down, I was told the Jordan River in that particular place in Bethany is very murky. So maybe not, I don't know. I'm just use my artistic license here. I wonder if they see their reflection. And all of a sudden they start asking the question, who am I? When I'm looking in the water, when I'm standing here, in the age of the superheroes, I look at myself in the mirror of baptismal water. And as John raises his hand to baptize, something very important happens. Something happens in this moment because people realize that everything that we've been waiting for apparently is not attached to human values and categories and priorities. That the God who is just like us, in many ways, has the ability and the strength to let go of all the things that we hang on. And this is where the dream begins. This is the imaginations open up. So that this whole expectation of coming of God, and the whole message of John is, can you imagine the life that goes beyond just the limitations and realities that you see? And you don't have to go far because it's standing right in front of you. I just love, we already mentioned in a liturgical service that the people who put it together, they offer the selections of the texts. And the text that comes from Psalms today, Psalm 126. And I love how it begins, because we only have about an hour left in the sermon. I'm just going to read you the beginning. When the Lord changed Zion's circumstances for the better, it was like we had been dreaming. Our mouths were suddenly filled with laughter. Our tongues were filled with joyful shouts. It was even said that at the time among the nations, the Lord has done great things for them. Yes, the Lord has done the great things for us, and we are overjoyed. I think we mislabeled John altogether. We know why he's called the Baptist, because when they came to him and they asked, who are you? Are you this? Are you that? He said, I'm not this, I'm not that. And they say, who are you? He said, well, I just got this water. Oh, you're the baptizer then. You're John the Baptizer. But I think we mislabeled him. I think John was the original Adventist, because he talks about this coming of God who opens up, it changes the reality. That doesn't connect well with people, particularly people in privilege and power who came to talk to him. Because we want the Messiah who can fix things. Just to we like to keep it as they are, just to change a little bit. We like what we see. We just want to fix our society, fix fix my house a little bit, fix my finances a little bit, fix my relationship a little bit, fix my health a little bit, maybe come up with a vaccine. We would like Messiah come up with a vaccine. Fix my friends, that's a big one. Fix my church. Fix my pastor. That would be a good one. Fix my children. God, and just fix me a little bit. Just not too much. Just, I don't like this, I don't like this about me. Just change me a little bit. We are really not expecting someone who just changes everything. We would like the Messiah who just comes and rearranges furniture on the Titanic. But John's Messiah comes and blows everything out of the water. This is not a superhero with supernatural abilities to keep things as they are, but make it better. And I wonder, as we celebrate Christmas year after year, that we indeed sometimes, and I do it all the time, that I do take Christ out of Christmas. Because we prepare for Christmas and we like Christmas being nice. And when I say the word Christmas, what town comes to mind? A little town of Bethany. It has to be a little town. It's just to be nice and cute. And it has to be a peaceful night. Did John, the Gospel of John, mention anything about Bethlehem? No. Because John did not want us to go to Bethlehem. John wanted us to go to Bethany. After 400 years of silence, these words come, and John again quotes from Isaiah 61, to proclaim the year of the Lord's favor and a day of vindication for our God, to comfort all who mourn, to provide the Zion's mourners, to give them a crown in place of ashes, oil of joy in place of mourning, a mantle of praise in place of discouragement. They will be called oaks of righteousness, planted by the Lord to glorify himself. Maybe Bethlehem, there's a star and angels and the peaceful and quiet, and there's a time and place for it, and we are hoping, and please pray for us. We would like to put together a little Christmas Eve service, and there will be plenty of that quiet and peace and joy. As always at RCC, nice and peaceful, as you know. But we'll do some. We'll try. We'll do our best to do something. If not live, we'll pre-record something. We'll try to do something. But today is not the Bethlehem yet. Today we're in Bethany. Because in Bethany we hear these words about the year of Jubilee, the year of Lord's favor. In the year of Jubilee, you know that every 50th year, that everything that people who were in slavery, in debt, everything was released and given back to them. People were completely restored. Their land was given back. If somebody was not savvy financially, lost their sort of inheritance, their father's land, and somebody had to take over, and they had to slave on that land, after a certain amount of years, they would get it back. That was the year of Jubilee, when everything would be given back how it was in the moment when the Israelites marched into the promised land, and everything would go back to their original state how it was. The year of Jubilee is really challenging year, because we always think, oh, during a year of Jubilee, just Christmas, I'll get what I want. But the year of Jubilee meant to challenge, because in the year of Jubilee, you not only get what you want. On the year of Jubilee, you have to forgive what is owed to you. You have to give something that is rightfully yours for all the fair reasons, but you have to forgive this and give it back if someone owes you. And Jesus went to a place telling these parables about the servants in unmerciful servants, in making this idea that this is the time that you gain the power and the strength, but giving up the control and giving up everything that we hinge our ideas of success. And all of a sudden we see the difference between John and those who came to see him. That for John, for them, Messiah was the idea, and for John, it was the reality that becomes clear. And that is why it's not surprising that all these things are happening in the town of Bethany, because Bethany comes back in chapter 11 and 12 of the Gospel of John. Because it was at Bethany that Jesus heard that his friend Lazarus got COVID and died. Or whatever he got. He died pretty quickly. Lazarus was from Bethany. It was in Bethany that Jesus called him out of the grave. And in the next chapter, in the chapter 12, it was in Bethany when Mary Magdalene, whose past was rather questionable, comes and breaks the obscenely expensive bottle of perfume and wastes all that wealth on Jesus' feet, using her hair as a towel. And Jesus forgives her and put her in a place of prominence. It was in Bethany that we find these remarkable things, how life changes. So, about 70 minutes I should be done. Nobody's laughing now. It feels like he's serious. He is going with that. So John the Adventist, or John the Baptist, as an Adventist, celebrating the Christmas would mean not only marveling the quietness and the peace in Bethlehem, where Jesus was born, but by stopping in Bethany, where Jesus was baptized and Lazarus resurrected, and where Mary was forgiven. Maybe this is the best way for us to prepare for Christmas. This is the time to open our hearts and minds to this idea. And we cannot do it ourselves. We cannot become superheroes. We cannot become forgiving, loving, and caring easily. We cannot look easily beyond the selfish desires and ambitions and greed. We can't do it ourselves. But the one who resurrected his friend and the one who forgave in that place called Bethany, he stepped in the water there and John baptized him. Well, you think I've done pretty good. You think this sermon is over. But I don't think it is. I think it's going to take us a lifetime to finish this story. Amen.